At 57,000 feet, the air over the Atlantic was cold and clear. From the flight deck of Concorde Golf Victor Foxtrot, Captain Urquhart could see the curvature of the Earth in a dark purple haze beyond the visor. For the passengers in the cabin, only the illuminated Mach-meter gave any indication that they were hurtling towards London at over 1,300 miles an hour, twice the speed of sound. Although British Airways Flight 192 had left New York a mere 2.5 hours before, the journey was nearly over, as Captain Urquhart explained over the tannoy. Ladies and gentlemen, we'll be reaching our deceleration point in a few minutes and beginning our descent into London Heathrow. Speedbird Concorde 192, you are clear to descend to flight level 370. The voice of air traffic control came through to the crew, giving them permission to leave their supersonic cruising altitude and join the queue of inbound subsonic aircraft waiting to land at Heathrow. The first officer sitting on the right of the captain leant across to make an adjustment to the auto throttle. Behind the first officer on the right of the narrow cockpit, the flight engineer scanned the myriad dials and gauges on the systems panel in front of him. For all three of them, it was one of the most critical periods of the flight. Every ounce of their skill was needed to slow the aircraft until it was just subsonic at the moment of crossing the coast. Captain Urquhart turned to his co-pilot with a smile of satisfaction. Mach 1.6, 60 miles to subsonic point. We're spot on. Far away on the ground, the progress of Flight 192 was being followed on the radar screens in air traffic control. The voice of Captain Urquhart was heard over the radio. Speedbird Concorde 192, level at 370. The controller gave further instructions. Speedbird Concorde 192, you are clear to continue descent to 280. There was no reply from the incoming aircraft. Speedbird Concorde 192, will you acknowledge, please? A confused crescendo of atmospherics began to whistle in the controller's headphones. For a moment, he thought he could detect the captain's voice beyond the interference. He transmitted again. Speedbird Concorde 192, will you acknowledge, please? But now there was only silence. Suddenly, the illuminated call sign on the radar, which marked Concorde's progress, started to flicker. Something was happening to the plane. The shimmering image on the tube grew fainter and fainter. Then it faded altogether from the screen. The controller couldn't believe it. The aircraft had simply disappeared. He picked up a red telephone. Emergency, we've lost Concorde Golf Victor Foxtrot. Meanwhile, a vehicle of quite another kind was nearing London. But the TARDIS was not travelling in any air corridor known to Heathrow's flight controllers. Not that anyone on board really cared where they were going. They were far too upset. Adric had died in a desperate attempt to save the freighter hijacked by the Cybermen from crashing to the Earth. Tegan and Nyssa still could not come to terms with the loss of their companion. "We can change what happened. We can materialize before Adric was killed," Tegan pleaded with the doctor. "There are rules that cannot be broken, even with the TARDIS. Don't ever ask me to do anything like that again." There was anger in the doctor's voice. In their own grief, Tegan and Nyssa had not realized how distressed he was at the death of his stowaway friend from Alzarius. The doctor spoke again, but more gently this time. "You must accept that Adric is dead. His life wasn't wasted. He died, like his brother, trying to save others." As the doctor recalled his adventure with the Marshmen in E-space, Tegan and Nyssa came to understand how little they knew about the boy who had sacrificed his life, like his brother Vash, to save his friends. Tegan was calmer now as she blinked back the tears. "We used to fight, but I'll miss him." "So will I," added Nyssa quietly.